Good morning, afternoon, evening, night, whenever you find it most convenient to listen to the second iteration of Quickfire. I, as always, am Alan, the pole with a goal, joined by my co-host, Tim.
Hey, Alan.
Good evening. We, no joke, like maybe an hour ago, got back from the Fire 2 game that just happened. We were just like, all right, let's just quickly, cool down. Or really warm up because it was cold and wet outside. So, just get ourselves situated and just get the news right out so it can be fresh off the press for you guys as soon as possible.
So, Fire 2 won against Forward Madison in the first ever competitive match between a USL League One team and an MLS Next Pro side. They won 2-0. The game, and we'll get into this more, but it did sort of feel like it was the Fire 2's match throughout most of it. Now, in a knockout competition, obviously, there's always the chance that, something happens that is against the run of play and then it's anybody's game and stuff like that. But that ultimately didn't. And, Fire 2 just did seem to be the better team on the night, just in the run of play.
Yep. Before we get to that, there was one piece of news that drops literally this morning that we just want to just throw out real quick, and that is that a person who was selected 24th overall in the 2024 MLS SuperDraft has a first-team contract, and that person is
64th overall. He wasn't that high of a draft pick, but
what did I say?
24th, but he's 24th in our hearts. It's the 2024 MLS Super.
You know why? Because I was looking at 2024. So
there's a 24 coming in there. But hey, at least you didn't say that he was selected 2024th in this Super Draft, because that at that point, I mean, like I could get drafted at that point. Like, come on.
All right. 64th overall in the 2024 MLS Super Draft. There we go. Lawrence Wootton, the 24-year-old. You see there, that's another one. From Stoke-on-Trent, is now a Fire first-team player, kind of, because he has been loaned out to Indy 11 for the rest of the 24 season in the USL Championship. But when he comes back, he's going to have a option for 2025, 26, and 27. So, good on him.
Yep. He's a highly rated prospect. Part of the reason that he didn't go higher in the draft more than anything else is the fact that he's English, and as such does not count as a domestic player on an MLS roster. So having to use the international slot does limit his kind of just like value in the draft, because you're looking for players that like can give you some upside, give you some minutes, and be plug and play. And having to use an international slot sort of like ruins that value proposition a little bit. So he is talented. He is capable. The Fire are pretty high on him and his abilities. Because he's on a season-long loan that has no option to recall, he will not occupy an international slot on the Fire's roster. And so that works out. This has been close for a while. It took a while longer than expected to get over the finish line. So, good news that it did for I think all parties concerned.
Yeah, good on him. The Ohio State man will hopefully play. And, maybe we'll see another situation like Chris Brady. He spent some time in USL, and look where he is right now.
Yeah, the difference is, and I think this is important, I think for his development, and it says something about what the Fire think about him, is that this loan is to a USL Championship side, which is a second division level club in the United States. So it's generally going to be a higher level of play than like Forward Madison, who we're about to talk about today, or like the Northern Colorado Hailstorm, like those sides, because the budgets are bigger, the crowds are generally bigger, and so that provides more of like a competitive, professional environment for a player to develop in.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, good on Lawrence. We did get to see or hear about him during preseason. He was featured, as well as in that one game against Austin where he scored the lone goal to be the winner.
Yep. Yeah.
So already from there we knew that he was being looked upon.
Yeah, and Min in Red, Alex Calabrese reported that he was about to sign a couple of weeks ago. Like I said, a while longer to take it across the finish line, but we're here now.
We are here and we're having fun. Speaking of having fun, we definitely had a lot of fun at the Fire 2 Forward Madison game. To some aspects, because of course it was raining, it was cold, but
Yeah, so Alan, I was in the press box, which at SeatGeek Stadium is not enclosed, so the cold is there.
But you were dry.
I was dry. Yeah. So that gave me, I think, a major advantage over what you had. So how did you endure it?
I had several layers. Several layers. For like the top part of me, I had my t-shirt and then a goalkeeper jersey, my sweater, and then another Fire jersey, and then my coat. So I had several layers on. Was I still cold? Yes. But like my actual skin wasn't like it. I didn't get wet. And then I had like a pair of joggers and then like my jeans over that. So the jeans got wet. The joggers didn't. And then I had like gym shoes. So they were a bit, wet. But thanks to some of the barn burners, they gave me hand warmers. And also this exists, toe warmers. Like they're kind of like hand warmers, but you just put them in your shoe where the toes are and they keep them warm. So that was pretty nice.
I love that in an audience that is largely based in the Midwest, you think that you're informing them about what toe warmers are. It's cute.
Because I've never heard of these.
I know. But having said that, I don't think your mom listens to the podcast, but if she does, she would be proud of you for the amount of layering you did.
I mean, hey, I just don't, first of all, cold, second, wet. So I didn't want that. I didn't want to risk anything as well.
No,
I still got
you made the right choice. You made the right choice. And as a result of those choices that kept you dry, even if it was still cold and wet outside, you were leading chance throughout significant portions of the match that were audible on the press box and the broadcast. So we'll retweet some of those on the Min and Red 97 Pods Twitter account, which you should follow if you haven't already. This MIR97 Pods, fantastic music selection. It is more like we're doing more than the same two chants that everyone has always heard at every soccer match for the past 20 years. So definitely check that out. It was worth listening to, and I think that it's a testament to the work that Alan, the music teacher, has been doing.
I mean, because a saxophone is not usually your first choice of instrument when it comes to supporter sections. Usually you think of trumpets and trombones. You think of like big brass instruments. But, I played saxophone from elementary school, middle school, and then some. So, I just did something that was comfortable for me, and it worked out. And we had a lot of fun. Though I didn't have too much luck because my class at DePaul ended at 5:50, so I immediately rushed for the trains, and luckily the red line was quick, but then I got unlucky with the orange line, and I had to wait 15 minutes, and then I got caught by a freight train on the drive from the train station to the stadium, so I ended up coming, literally no joke, I'm walking up to the security, and I hear, "Goal!" And I was like, oh, well, we got one, that's good, so Tim, why don't you tell our audience how that goal happened?
So basically, for those that were fortunate enough to not have been outside in the Chicago area on a Wednesday night when the match was happening, it was cold. It was rainy. It was snowing after a while, but at this point, it was still rain. And as such, the pitch was slick. It was not inundated. It was not soggy, but it was slick. The ball was slipping around. And basically, the Fire were able to work the goal deep into Forward Madison's zone. I want to say, I'm trying to remember who it was that worked the ball that played the ball deep, but the ball got onto the foot of Omari Glasgow, who crossed it. There were a number of runners in the box. It ends up in the hands of Martin Sanchez, the Forward Madison backup goalkeeper who was starting in this match. He misplays it for a second, and with a sea of Min in Red in the box, it turns out that it is David Pareba, the captain for the match, that is the first on it and just kicks it past Sanchez for a goal.
Yep. So very early on, 1-0. And that stayed until the end of the end of the first half.
So just talking about this goal for a second, I think it was a great example of you play and how you play in tough conditions. It's getting the ball forward. I'm not normally a fan of relying on crosses into the box and a hope and a prayer after that as a source of offense. But in a game like this, where you don't know where the ball's slick, you don't know if the goalie is going to misplay it. You don't know if your strike is going to be exactly right. Getting it into the right area and getting players into the right area is a good formula for trying to get something out of it, right?
Just getting players into the area, period. Because even if the cross goes somewhere like, into the foot of the opposing player or the goalkeeper uses his gloves to punch it away, there's always the rebound, and which is that exactly what happened. And of course, the sort of how it happened may be attested to the weather, very similar to what happened to Spencer Ritchie in the Revs game, that it just slipped out of his gloves. But nonetheless, someone was there for the rebound. If this was the first team, probably one of the Madison players that were near the goalkeeper would have just punted it away. But there were 5 players at the moment of the cross. So no matter where, or even if the ball was, rebounded somewhere, there was a higher chance of a Fire 2 player getting the rebound in comparison to fairly none. If there was 1 or 2 or even no one.
It was a lot of hustle. Now, I mean, again, this was a match of skill, I think. I mean, not to be blunt about it, there were skilled players on Forward Madison's roster. Unfortunately, their most effective striker was injured and wasn't able to be in the match whatsoever. He was hurt in the 13th minute of their previous match. So it's not that there aren't skilled players on both teams, but the skill level and the ceiling of the Fire 2 players is just higher than the Forward Madison players. I mean, there are players on the Fire 2 roster that came with significant transfer fee attached that frankly, the transfer fee that one of the players on the Fire 2 roster had coming in could have paid for Forward Madison's roster for a couple of years, I mean, so that says something about the ceiling. On the other hand, Forward Madison's players on average were more than 5 years older than the Fire 2 players. So it's an age versus experience thing. There was a size difference, partly as a result of that, partly just because of the size of the players. But I mean, some of it was players that are, not 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old and have had more time to just, grow into their bodies and bulk up some. And so the Fire 2 in this match had that skill and speed advantage in a way that doesn't necessarily happen as much in an MLS league match,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good goal. I'll say that. Just
it was a good goal, and it was the right thing to do. Right.
There.
Exactly. The right thing to do. And Pareba was one of a number. I mean, talking to him after the match, he said that it was just, it was the plan to go in and try to get goals like that off of crosses. And he just knew that, Glasgow was going to be good for it, for a cross into a dangerous area. And that's what we saw.
Yeah.
So it's, again, it's it's simple. It was not an overly complicated play, but it was very effective, and we just showed what it did. And, in this case, it did happen because the goalkeeper wasn't able to keep his hands on a rebound in slick conditions, but it's a chance game. You know what I mean? It's the number, you need to make a number of chances to get one to go in. It just so happened that one of the Fire's first legitimately good chances was the one that put them up 1-0.
Mm-hmm. He was there for the rebound. And that's what I've been kind of saying with all these past matches for the Fire 1. So anyways,
good thing to do when you're trying to get a goal, not a great thing to do when you're trying to get a romantic partner.
Amen, I say to that. The only other thing that really happened in the first half was around the 25th minute when Harold Osorio fired a banger, but it bounced off the post, and I thought it was going in, but
It bounced off the post so hard. You could almost say that the post seemed like it was bouncing off of it. Like the woodwork was shaking when it hit the crossbar, but it hit the crossbar and did not go in. And so that kept the game at 1-0.
Yeah. To which, it finished 1-0 at halftime. And similar to the first game against Chicago City, the first team player that was Wyatt Omsberg was subbed off at halftime. And there were a few other subs on the Madison side, a few from...
But not until... That was the only one and a half. The other...
That was the only one and a half. The others ones came in like the 61st and then like the 66th minute. So
yeah, on. Madison made a trio of subs in the 61st minute. Essentially, up to that point, Madison had been getting shots. None had looked particularly dangerous. And Madison did not register a shot that counted on net throughout the course of the match. So the momentum had been the Fire's throughout the match. I mean, it just felt like, up 1-0. I mean, obviously, like, you're not in a safe position because something can happen and then it's a tied match and who knows from there. But it had really felt like the Fire match, right? I mean, to both of us, I think that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it was in the Fire 2's hands for the most part. Like,
and then, but Forward Madison had really been resting a number of their starters at the beginning of this match. And those were the subs that were made in the 61st minute. They were players that you'd normally see starting a match for the most part that came on in favor of some players that really wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. And then, subs on our side that saw Jason Shukalu come in for Christian Coffey. Javi Casas came off for Romain Blake. Few yellow cards on both sides. There were 2 for Madison, 68th, 74th, and then 79th, 84th. Shukaluk and Oriel both got yellows. So, yeah.
The game was getting to be a little bit scrappy. I mean, the referee, I think, did an overall good job keeping a lid on things, but there were players on both sides that were, kind of like grabbing and clutching and stuff like that to try to get advantage. And frankly, I always thought that's something that's a lot easier to do in conditions like this, where if you've got a choice when you're going for a ball and the ground is slippery and you're slipping, and you're about to, you're going down, maybe you think, why don't I try taking this guy with me and see where that gets me, yeah. And so like that, I think, was one of the factors that was leading to it. So the ref, I thought, did a good job of sort of like drawing the right line of letting a little bit of clutching and grabbing happen as long as it wasn't really dangerous and as long as it was even on both sides. But that kind of that sort of quid pro quo broke down, like around the 68th minute. And that's when we started seeing like, it was a bunch of like 4 yellow cards, I think you said, and that, 4 yellow cards that happened, in about a 15-minute span.
Yep. And, the game was about finishing up.
I will say that Forward Madison had been growing into the match with around the 71st, 73rd minute, like that 2-minute stretch, like they had a number of good looks on Patrick Loss's goal. The shots went wide, but they very easily could have not gone wide and they would have been difficult for him to deal with. Yeah. And it seemed like momentum with those first team, like those like first choice players from Forward Madison, was starting to shift towards their favor. The ball was getting played in the Fire 2's half a lot more in that second half.
Yeah. But at the same time, I felt like there wasn't a lot of as dangerous moments. There were a few like, oh, here they come. But like you said, they would just go past the goal mouth and not much really came forward from it. I feel like at that point, it felt like, I don't know, maybe the adrenaline was pumping so much from being in the cold and just having a whale of a time, essentially, since we were swimming in there, that we thought the Fire could essentially end the match 1-0. But into the 4 minutes of stoppage time, something else happened.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, but that we don't really have to get, like, I want to say the 82nd minute, there was a dangerous ball into the box, and Patrick Loss, I don't know why I keep mispronouncing his name, parried it away. He like basically it was like a two-handed fist bump to clear it. It was like and the ball landed again in a dangerous area, and there was a fairly good shot that came off of that. Again, it went wide, so like that's fortunate, but really, and it was a pretty decent mirror of the play that earned the Flyers' first goal in terms of it being like a ball into the box with a number of players of the from the opposing team that were in dangerous areas. Patrick Loss was able to parry it out, but easily could have been mishandled. He made the right choice of just like, basically it was like a Super Mario Brothers, like, hitting the block kind of move to get it out. Yeah, exactly. I was actually waiting to hear that from the press box, but it never happened.
You should have just did it. You should have just yelled, Yahoo!
That would have been,
it's me, Patrick Loss. That's probably not his voice is, but yeah.
No, that's not his voice, but that's we should maybe workshop that with him.
We'll talk with him. But
yes. Yeah, like that I thought was the most dangerous chance that Forward Madison had all night, and at that point, it's a one. It's still a 1-0 game. It could have been anybody's. It could have really been anybody's.
True. It could have it could have changed something, and we would have been there a lot longer. But instead, that didn't happen. Like I mentioned, also, if it's obvious, we don't really have notes. We're just going off of it. That's why we're like, oh, this happened. Why not this? It was at that moment, lob forward from Rochester up to Jason Shukaluk. He was basically like one-on-one with the goalkeeper. Keeper dove for it. He missed. Shukaluk did basically like a little wrap around in the box. At that point, I thought he was going to square it to one of the two other Fire players. No, he took it himself, and it went into the right side of the net to make it 2-0 in the 89th.
Yeah, and like I had it at the 90th minute, but
going into the 90th, yeah.
Yeah, it was right before stoppage time started. Either way, like the dying minutes, and again, like there had been dangerous chances for Forward Madison, and I can't speak for you, except I think I can speak for you on this. Like I think everyone was dreading the prospect of there potentially being a late tying goal for Forward Madison, which would have sent the match to 30 minutes of stop it or 30 minutes of extra time and potentially penalties after that. Just given the weather, given everything else, everyone wanted the match done in 90. So the insurance goal, I thought was, what a goal. And like just Shakaluk's ball retention in that minute was phenomenal. The ball from Rochester, I thought was really great. It was just a solid goal and like a skilled goal. Like it really was a moment where I think you could say like the Fire 2 just sort of like out-skilled Forward Madison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said, we probably were just delirious at that point because of the rain and just the goofiness of us.
And snow, because the precipitation changed to snow at some point around like the 30-something minute of the first half. And it didn't let up. It was coming down. It seemed like up until like the very last minutes of the match, although I was covered, so I was feeling parts of it, but I wasn't really in it.
Yeah, we had fun though at that game. We were playing different chants and songs at one point, and if you go on the CF97 hashtag, you'll probably find some moment of us playing and singing said chant.
Yeah, we'll repost them to MIR97 pods so that you can listen. It was a fun time. I think Alan's a little too modest to do it because he was the guy that was sort of like leading these things, but no, it was good. It was good.
Yep. Yeah. So tomorrow, as of recording, so by the time this episode comes out, you guys will
on Thursday at noon, just to be clear.
Yes, Thursday at noon. Maybe the episode will come out earlier, maybe not. We really don't know. This is literally like we sat down and did this to see who we're going to play against. And it will most likely be, or it will be against a USL
championship team. So a second division.
Yes.
So a second division team. So those teams are generally better established. The league is better established. They have higher budgets. The quality of play is generally, almost universally better than USL League One, the team that where Forward Madison plays. And so it will be a tougher test for the Fire 2. So it will be one of 16 teams from USL Championship that the Fire 2 will face in the next round. They try to keep it regional. So, that could be, potentially another match at SeatGeek or potentially a Midwestern derby of kinds.
Yeah. But hey, even if it's like against a team that's technically a division higher, we might see another upset. That's the magic of the cup. And speaking, I don't want to say this is an upset, but this just happened. Colorado Rapids 2 just got knocked out by Northern Colorado Hailstorm, literally last minute of extra time.
So that is the only other match that is happening this round between MLS Next Pro and USL League One. So the Fire 2 advanced and the other MLS Next Pro team did not.
So apart from the Fire 2 and NYC 2, who beat Red Bull 2, who are the other MLS Next Pro teams that are still in competition?
Oh boy, are you asking me to go off the top of my head?
Well, I was just wondering if you knew.
So, I believe... Okay, so NYCFC 2 and Red Bulls 2 faced each other. NYCFC 2 won that match. Let me think. The Rapids 2 just lost, so they are out. Minnesota United 2 lost to Michigan Stars, which, by the way, that game, Justin Miram, the well-known MLS player that most recently was playing for Charlotte, was featuring for the Michigan Stars. So Michigan Stars beat Minnesota United 2, so that team is out. Carolina Core are an independent MLS Next Pro team. They unfortunately ended Vermont Green's cup run. They were a fun team to watch in the first round. Really good crowd. So that unfortunately will not be a venue we're seeing again this year. And then I think later from the time that we're recording, you'll know the result of this, but we don't. Ventura County FC are facing Irvine Zeta FC. So that match, Irvine County or Ventura County FC, I believe, are another independent team, although they may be associated with the Galaxy. Off the top of my head,
they are associated with the Galaxy, I think.
Okay, so then they would be the other. They would be the other option.
But they are losing 2-0 to Irvine Zeta in the 87. Right. So that's
unlikely to
possible.
Be. Yeah. So yeah, that's not really a great run. Considering that Vermont Green, the only other team that a MLS Next Pro team beat in this round, other than the Fire 2, are a USL 2 team, so an amateur team, basically.
Incredible.
So not a great run of form for MLS Next Pro in this round, which does two things. Like, one, I think that it says something good about what has been going on under, I think, without enough people really talking about it in Bridgeview with the Fire 2. And it also says something about basically the project of MLS Next Pro and how far it still has to go. And I think that there's a lot of people that would say things about what it says about the fact that these are the teams that MLS headquarters decided should be sent into the historic US Open Cup rather than MLS first teams.
Yep. Hopefully we'll see the first teams back in Open Cup action. Like, don't get me wrong. Good on Fire 2 and their current run, but the first team and all that stuff should be there too.
I agree. Yeah. And again, like this has been a good opportunity for Ludovic Talendier, the Fire 2 head coach, to showcase the strengths of his squad. And I think he's done a good job doing so. But I mean, this is like one of the only countries in the world where there's reserve teams participating in cup competition in 2024. So hopefully it's something that everything you said.
Also, Irvine Zeta just scored a third against Ventura County, so
that one's pretty much over.
All
right. So on that note,
sleep well. Well,
you too, my friend.
Well.
Hopefully you don't sleep well if you're listening to this at like breakfast time or on the drive to work or something like that, because that's not a great time to sleep.
Unless you don't have anything else to do on a Thursday, honestly, if you don't have to work, just get some rest. Take a nap. Do what you will.
On that advice, yeah. On that advice, can you tell that we normally are better planned than this? I know it doesn't seem like we normally have any plan whatsoever, but
yeah, we are totally not planned. But hey, it's Quickfire. So, which speaking of, thank you for listening to Quickfire. I, as always, am Alan, the Pole with the Goal, joined by my co-host Tim, for both the Fire and Fire 2. Come on, you men in red.
Come on, you men in red. Also, follow MIR97 pods on Twitter and listen to the wonderful music of Alan at the Fire 2 match.
Yes. If you don't, DJ will come and find you on horseback.
It's a promise. All right. Come on, you men in red.
All right. What an episode. I'm sorry, Austin.